Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kanyunyuzi Betty, but you can still call me Nyunyu. As we had talked about the different types and sources of information in the previous video, we introduced the 3 different sources of information, but we were specific on only one type, which was the primary source of information. Today we are going to talk about the secondary source of information, but in the previous video we had introduced the 3 sources of information. We had defined given characteristics and the examples of the different types of information sources. But now today we are just going to talk about secondary sources of information, and that is all we have to talk about today. So let's go and open up our work. We are going to talk about secondary sources of information. Come to first open up our first. That is what we are going to talk about today. This is what we're going to talk about today, the secondary source of information. And so we are going to talk about the secondary source of information, and here we go. This is our first slide. It says a secondary source is the one that interprets, analyzes, or summarizes primary sources or events. So that is simply what we mean when we say a secondary source of information. It is a source that interprets, analyzes, summarizes events of primary sources, or what happened in primary sources is now being analyzed in the secondary source. So that is simply the definition. So let's look at some of its characteristics, and I think you can generate the characteristics from its definition, because when you come here you see it's a source that interprets, that means interpretation, analyzes, that is analysis, summarizes. So simply you can derive characteristics from its definition. However, let's look at its characteristics. The first one is interpretive, like it is when you interpret what you had in your primary source. The second one is evaluative. The third is summarizing or summary, and then the fourth one is counterlectual. So those are simply the 4 characteristics, or the major characteristics of a secondary source of information. Or when we talk of secondary source of information, that is, those are the characteristics of the secondary source of information. Then the third, we have examples of secondary sources of information, and the first one are the books, the journal articles, documentaries, essays, reviews, and many more. So these are some of the images I managed to get, or the illustrations of what I've been reading, like the books. This one has books and there is an example of a review article here. So those are some of the examples of the secondary source of information that we use. Then the fourth sector or subsector that is in the secondary source of information is, we are looking at what is the major purpose of the secondary information. What do we gain? What are we after when we are using secondary source of information? And it is simply interpretation and analysis of our primary information that we had. The second one is broader understanding. Since here you've analyzed, after analyzing you interpret what you've analyzed, and now you understand more, of which primary you're just getting something which you will analyze after the event has taken place. So after the event has already taken place, you sit down and interpret the given information, you analyze it, thereby you will understand it. That is what we mean by broader understanding. Then there is summarize and synthesize information, support research and study, then provide background and context. So that is simply those are simply the major purposes of the secondary source of information. And finally, what we have to know what is the role of secondary sources of information in research. You know, in most cases we are told to go and make research, we're given research work, but now we want to know what is the role of the secondary sources of information and how will they help us in our researches that we have to do. It's according to the kind of research you're given, but now we are going to look at the roles of secondary sources of information in doing our researches. And the first one is that they help scholars interpret primary data by providing existing frameworks, theories, and methodologies. Remember, for primary, you haven't analyzed, but after analyzing, you'll keep what you've analyzed in form of textbook, frameworks, theories that other people will use in their course of their researches. So it's simply needed when you're making your research, since you're just going to get information from people who already analyzed it. That will help you understand more. The other thing is support literature reviews, like this one. There is an example of a review here I had. Then the other one is save time and effort by providing compiled and summarized information. Remember, for secondary, they simplify work, because when you're making research, in most cases you find whatever you're looking for is compiled than it would have been if you were making your own personal research. So secondary simplifies everything for us, because you find everything is compiled. You just have to read what is compiled, because they compile and summarize information, which makes it easier for you to access it and saves time that you would have spent for making your own personal research from the beginning. So those are some of the major roles of secondary sources of information in research. That is simply what I had for you today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And your comments are very important, so do not forget to comment as well. Thank you for watching. I remain Can you use it Betty, but you can still call me Nunu. Bye bye.